Aaron McCarty at the controls.
Trying.
No, you're doing
Well, this isn't in the right place here.
I agree.
Ah, see, I don't know that. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Behind the scenes stuff going on. Apologize.
Yeah. You
All
see
right.
where it says Keel FM Sports Sounder?
Yeah.
That's not what you need there.
Okay. Get rid of that?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. You see down below where you have traffic sounder and traffic?
Yeah.
That goes above.
We'll fix that later. We'll fix it in a minute. Well, you just tell me what to hit next.
Guests on Keel heard via the Jack Spring Electric Keel Newsmaker hotline. The one standing by is political analyst Scott Hughes. What's up, amigo? How are you this morning? How late did you stay up? Did it get you wired? Did it get you intense? What were your thoughts on last night's Cleveland get-together?
Well, when you do live TV till about 10:30, I didn't go to bed till about 1. My thoughts have not changed. It was something I've never seen, and the fact that I am back talking to you this morning cannot be a good sign.
The fact you say, I'm intrigued by that. You said it was something like you had never seen. My thought through the debate and even on the radio so far this morning is that's exactly what I expected Trump to do. It was maybe an nth of a degree or two beyond the Hillary debates, but it really was just what Trump does. What in your mind made it is worse than ever? Too strong a way to put it?
I would say so, Robert. 4 years ago, yes, I think the Hillary Trump debates they were different. But they still had a certain level of decorum. I think Trump stalked Hillary. He moved around the stage. There was optics involved. You had a crowd. There was a build up to that, but we still had the ability to hear each candidate. Last night, for the first 15 or 20 minutes, it was a three ring circus. Chris Wallace lost complete control. I think Trump's strategy was to come out and create chaos, which he did. And Joe Biden, who's not necessarily a strong debater at all, gave a very weak performance in many regards, but still might have been the winner in the grand scheme of things. I think somewhere far, far away, Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln are rolling over in their grave. How we've gotten to a point where that is seen as a debate, as a civil discussion of ideas. I think America lost last night.
Scott, let me ask you, the next debates are going to have a little bit different format. Is that what I'm understanding, where maybe it won't come off the rails so bad? What do you know about, what can you tell us about the formats for the next ones?
I'll be honest, Aaron, I haven't even looked at the formats for the next ones yet. I was trying to get to this first one. I think many of us do have the concern Robert's raised, or are we going to have future debates? I think after last night, there may not be future debates. We will have a vice presidential debate. I think that's actually the next debate, is the vice presidential candidate, and it will be more civil. I think you're going to see two people that are very professional. Ms. Harris, she's a prosecutor by nature. She's going to be very professional. She knows the power of letting your opponent answer the question that you've asked. If you ask a great question, it doesn't do you any good if you don't let the opponent answer the question, especially if you've got him set up. I think Vice President Pence is the adult in the room. He's going to be very controlled. Beyond that, I don't know that we get to two other debates now.
Speaking of adult in the room, to hear someone call the sitting president a clown and tell him to shut up, and I know Trump had his faults last night too, but to hear that, shut up was an illegal term in my household. My children knew if they said shut up to anyone, they were in such trouble. So for me to hear that last night, I thought, wow, that is just so irresponsible. Am I overboard on that?
No, I think if you look at the night, Vice President Biden over the course of the night calls the president a clown. He calls him a liar. He calls him Putin's puppet. The line of the night was just shut up, man. That seemed to be the big takeaway for the night. And yet, with all those things, he still probably came across as the more decorum person on the stage. Trump still went over the top even more than a former vice president calling a sitting president those names. That's the level at which, if you watch debate, and I know some people like the theater of this, and maybe that's where we are in America today, but there's many that still want to harken back and say it's the president. There is a role and there is a imagery of the U.S. president that goes beyond reality TV that we see on cable news. There are other countries watching that. There are presidents of other nations watching that. There are people that watch our president, watch our potential president, and now they have some insights into the character and the hot buttons and how to get our president off kilter. Last night was not a good night for the presidency.
I am intrigued by your Chris Wallace lost control and criticism. I'd be a little nicer to Chris in the sense that there's not much more he could do than he could do. My criticism of Wallace is last night that every time that it's almost like he was there trying to bail out Biden when the former vice president would kind of stutter and hesitate and be a little lost. Did you have that sense about Wallace's role last night?
Oh, 100%, Robert. When I say Chris Wallace lost control, it's all encompassing. I think one of the ways that Wallace unfortunately lost control early on is he became a third combatant. He had been very clear the role of the moderator is not to fact check, and yet in some regards he began fact checking. And many watching the debate felt that in some regards, particularly in the first 15 or 20 minutes, which was critical, because that's when people were really tuned in. They were fired up to watch this. Moderates, undecideds were maybe trying to figure out what's going on. And Wallace became a third combatant. And at one point, clearly Trump was taking on two competitors. He even kind of made that joke. And I was actually sitting watching the debate last night with a friend of your show as well, Stephen Jackson, Cattle Commissioner Stephen Jackson, who's the Democratic Party person. And Stephen, I don't want to kind of out him, but Stephen said, he goes, I think Wallace is doing Biden's job. And I think everyone in the room I was sitting in agreed that Wallace had broken that third rail and he had engaged himself in the debate, which I think was sad from so many standpoints. Most folks probably know Chris Wallace as Mike Wallace's son, the legendary 60 Minutes anchor, CBS anchor. And Chris is a well-respected journalist. He's from Fox News, and I think he was chosen to be from the first one from Fox News, hoping it would help moderate this. And he really had no ability to step back and play the role of moderator and control the room. He actually threw gas on the fire.
If I said to you last evening when Biden would sort of step in it, be hesitant, or be cornered, I'm not overstepping what you're saying to say Scott Hughes says that Chris Wallace saved Biden's water last night.
I think if you do any kind of Twitter search or Google search, you'll see that almost every respected journalism or media outlet is saying the same thing. I think Chris Wallace was probably one of the biggest disappointments last night in what became, quite frankly, a three-ring circus.
One more thing, Scott. I watched it, and I woke up this morning and again say the same thing. These two men are the best we got, and I'm embarrassed about it.
Well, and Aaron, I think that's where America got last night. It's where I came home and watched some of the coverage. When you do live radio media, when you're doing something live, sometimes you miss some of the things because it happens and it goes on. And so I came back and reviewed some of it to see, and I think that's where everyone's going to get. They're going to say, this is the best that we had, and or the best that we have. And in the end, and I'll go back to what I said yesterday, in the end, this was supposed to be or needed to be about the undecided and winning voters to your cause. And I think neither person did that. And by default, Biden may have won more voters over to himself last night by, in a way, being a sympathetic punching bag to a degree, but also as coming across as we can't have 4 more years of this. And my job's not to get into campaigns, but if I step back and look at the imagery, I think that's where a lot of independents and moderates are going to go. They're going to say Trump didn't make a compelling argument last night for why we need 4 more years of him. There were several critical moments where Trump was given an opportunity to make some definitive statements. He would not make those statements. I'm not saying Biden was any better, but what the way the thing broke last year was a lot of people said, I can't go with the establishment. I can't have 4 more years or 8 more years of what we had. And they broke late away from Hillary Clinton, who was the establishment, to Donald Trump, who represented something new and different. And ironically, this time, Trump's forgetting he is the establishment. He still thinks of himself as the outsider, but now he is the sitting president. And I think last night he may wake up and discover that some people are going to break away from him late, these undecideds, back toward Biden just on the optics alone. And the best thing I heard last night, it's a phrase I've heard before, is that I think this thing has gotten so ugly potentially that in the end, voters are either just going to come home or go home or stay home. And so the chaos that's being created around this election is going to turn off a lot of voters. And so this may become a race of the bases. I think that's where Trump's campaign is right now. He's appealing to his base. I think Biden's choice and his choice for VP were to appeal to their base. And we may get down to a race of base on base and turnout, and the moderates may just stay home, or based on some initial polling, may break toward Biden because they just can't take 4 more years of whatever this is, just the optics alone.